Hello and welcome to another historic video here on the official MTG Arena channel. Today we are revisiting Goblin Charbelcher combo as it got a ton of upgrades through Modern Horizons 3. This card is what it's all about, a 4-mana artifact, can pay 3 mana and tap it to reveal cards from the top of our library until we reveal a land card, and then Charbelcher deals damage equal to the number of non-land cards revealed this way to any target. We'll target our opponent, go through the whole deck, and it turns out we don't have any lands in our deck, so we can easily deal 50 damage with one Goblin Charbelcher activation. Now, how do we build a deck without any lands in it, while still having enough mana to cast Charbelcher and activate it? Well, we technically don't have any lands, but we can still have lands in play thanks to these dual-phased lands. We've got cards like Spikefield Hazard, which can be played as Spikefield Cave as a tapped land, and if we go through the deck with Charbelcher, it doesn't technically count as a land, since the front side is Spikefield Hazard, a 1-mana instant, so this can also still be useful if we need to take out some 1-toughness creatures. And then thanks to Modern Horizons 3, we now have a bunch more of these lands that can enter the battlefield untapped at the cost of 3 life, so that will significantly speed up our deck as we now can actually curve out a lot better than before, and Sink into Stupor for 3 mana can also still be a fine interactive spell to cast in some matchups. And then a Sundering Eruption is the red one. This one's even better than the blue one, since our deck is base red, since we will need a lot of red mana to cast some of our spells, especially triple red for Ironcrag Feet, so we can't afford to play too many off-color lanes. And then we've got Valakut Awakening, also enters tapped, but can also be a fine 3-mana instant to sculpt our hand. Then we've got a Rush of Inspiration, making both blue and red, although it does enter tapped, but also a 3-mana instant we can maybe cast in some matchups. We also have a small energy sub-theme to maybe help pay for a Rush of Inspiration, as we'll get to in a second. And then a Shatterskull Smashing, another untapped one that makes a red mana, so this one's perfect. And then I've replaced our Seagate Restoration with Sink into Stupor, a bit better on the wild cards, and at least at 3 mana we can potentially hardcast Sink as opposed to Seagate Restoration, which we were never going to hardcast in this deck. So this makes up our mana base. Now, one thing you'll notice is we're not playing any other creatures or artifacts in the deck besides Goblin Charbelcher, and there's a reason for that. Otherwise, we could potentially play some other creatures that can also be played as lands at the cost of 3 life, but we're not doing so because of Indomitable Creativity, and this is another way to access a Goblin Charbelcher in case we don't draw it, by simply destroying our own artifact, and we've got a few ways to make treasure tokens in this deck that we can target with our own creativity, and then for each permanent destroyed this way, its controller will reveal cards from the top of their library until an artifact or creature card is revealed. We get to exile it and then put the exiled card onto the battlefield. So for 4 mana, 1 and triple red, we can target our own treasure token to turn it into a Goblin Charbelcher. And then if we combine that with an Ironcrag Feat, we can potentially win the game on the spot. This 4-mana sorcery adds 7 red mana to our mana pool, but we can only cast 1 more spell this turn, so we can chain together a bunch of these, but 1 more spell is still enough to cast a Goblin Charbelcher, have 3 red mana left over, which is enough to activate the Charbelcher to hopefully win the game. So this deck is capable of winning on turn 3, if on turn 1 or 2 we make some treasure tokens, either with Strike It Rich or with our Magma Opus, which can be discarded for blue and red mana, and then we can potentially cast a turn 3 Ironcrag Feat, cast Charbelcher, activate it, and win the game. And then Ironcrag Feat is also great alongside Indomitable Creativity, as that will still give us some leftover mana to maybe activate Charbelcher after getting it in play, but of course we will also need an extra artifact to target. So that's where Strike It Rich and Magma Opus help out. And then rounding out the deck, we also have Seize the Spoils, which can also leave behind a treasure token, and then can also discard and draw, so can also sculpt our hand. And then Faithless Looting can draw 2 and discard 2, can also improve our hand to find those missing combo pieces. And then we've got a bit more interaction with 2 copies of Brotherhood's End as a sweeper. And then Galvanic Discharge, a new energy instant that can deal 3 damage to a creature potentially if we spend all 3 energy. Can also maybe have some leftover energy and then use that additional energy to deal more damage with a future Galvanic Discharge. So this has now replaced Strangle, and dealing 3 damage for 1 mana is pretty important in this format, since a lot of the wizards out of the Blue-Red Wizards deck have 3 toughness, so being able to answer them for 1 mana is important. So now Galvanic Discharge is the best 1 mana removal spell for a control deck that doesn't care about dealing damage directly to the opponent. And then last but not least, we also have 4 copies of Pact of Negation to counter target spell for 0 mana. but there's a caveat. At the beginning of our next upkeep, we have to pay 3 and double blue. If we don't, we lose the game. Now the trick is once again to win the game before we have to pay 5 mana. So sometimes what'll happen is we play Goblin Charbelcher, the opponent might have a way to win the game themselves, or maybe a way to answer Goblin Charbelcher. Now if we have a Pact of Negation in hand, we can counter it, go to our upkeep, the trigger from Pact goes on the stack asking us to pay 5 mana or we lose the game. In response, we activate Charbelcher and we win the game, and it doesn't matter if Pact is still on the stack if the game is now over. So that can also be a great way to maybe fight through removal spells or maybe counter spells that try to counter our Goblin Charbelcher. Although we do have to be careful, because if we go for Ironcrag Feet into Charbelcher, we wouldn't be able to cast a Pact since we can only cast one more spell afterwards. So that's important to keep in mind. But yeah, that's most of what I had to say about the deck, so let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the play, and what do we think of our hand? Double Pact of Negation, can maybe discard to looting if they're not needed. And then yeah, we've got 3 lands and a Charbelcher, so ideally find Ironcrag Feet to speed up the combo a little bit. Maybe we'll need some interaction. But yeah, hand has potential. So I'll start by maybe playing a tapped Hazard, even though it's possible I might need the 1 damage instant somewhere. Find another one. So against turn 1 Forest, I don't think I'll need Pact of Negation too much. So I'm okay discarding at least one of them. And could discard Sink, just play tapped Hazard. Could also keep up Discharge, but I think I'll be able to cast it later. So I'll hang on to 1 pack just in case. Save myself the damage. And then could also flash back looting next turn. Or just go tap land, keep up Discharge. Turn 4 cast Charbelcher. And then activate on the following turn. Innkeeper could point towards some life gain combo decks. And a Halfling. Okay. Hazard could also answer the Innkeeper. And yeah, I guess we don't really need the 5th land. So I'll just play this tapped, can Hazard the Innkeeper now. And keep up Discharge, let them keep the Halfling. Even though that can maybe set up a Collected Company. Alright, Boseiju could have been an answer to our Charbelcher, so happy to see that played. Tyvar cannot get back Innkeeper since we exiled it. It's good minus. Now Discharge can damage Planeswalkers, which may be worth it here. Yeah, sure. And then we've got double Pact of Negation, which I can cast to protect the Charbelcher, since we can just activate this at instant speed in our upkeep. So we'll see if they can answer it. Court for 1. Yeah, I guess we just counter this on the off chance that they can get an answer. Haywire Might, they don't have green mana left, so that wouldn't necessarily do it. Can't think of anything else, but I guess it's just good to showcase this interaction. And our opponent explodes, yeah, untap, and before we have to pay for Pact, activate Charbelcher for the win. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Lurrus, and we've got a Keeper. Don't have many lands, just a Valakut Awakening and Sink into Stupor. But with Magma Opus we can make an extra treasure. And now we found another land, so fine to just play this tapped. And then turn 2 make a treasure, turn 3 Ironcrag Feed into Charbelcher, could be game over. Hopefully we don't see cards like Thalia show up. Guide of Souls is acceptable. So this may be a red-white energy deck. And another Sentinel. Well, they'll draw some cards off of it. But hopefully that's not gonna matter. So yeah, can take 3. Pass a turn. We'll take another 3. but I don't see them dealing 13 damage. So they really need some interaction here. Raptor can maybe find some. A great combo with the Guide of Souls as well. Although in this deck with Lurrus as companion, they were always going to have cards they could cast. And now a Goblin Bombardment can deal some additional damage by sacrificing creatures, but yeah, I mean, we had the perfect draw here. Treasure Maker into Ironcrag Feet plus Charbelcher. So there's not a whole lot our opponent can do about that. And seeing the strength of these new lands letting us curve out a lot better than before. Otherwise we were stuck with all these tapped lanes. Can cast one more spell. Conveniently have 3 mana floating. And 21 life is not going to be enough here, as we deal 50 damage. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have Charbelcher, some mana, and a pact to protect it. Yeah, only 2 mana sources, I guess, is the main hurdle. Need to get up to 4. So this one's kind of borderline. But we do have some good interaction with double discharge. So I'll give it a shot. And then I'll just play this tapped for starters. Yeah, could cast a looting. Opponent's blue-green. And maybe Brotherhood's End and 1 discharge can go. Play this one tapped or untapped. Could go tapped, and then if I really need to discharge and use Magma Opus, I can take 3 next turn. Find a backup Charbelcher. So at this point, I think it's reasonable to just play Smashing untapped. So I can Magma Opus and discharge if needed. Opponent not doing anything so far. Ether Channeler is acceptable. So they might have some bounce synergies. We could take out the Channeler, it's not really bothering me. Maybe they have cards like Soul Herder, which we would rather take out. I guess if they Soul Herder, then Channeler can bounce the Charbelcher. Alright, I'll just do it now. If they have a Skyclave Apparition, it's nice to have a backup Charbelcher, although with the Pact of Negation, we can also just counter whatever they play next, and then before having to pay for Pact, I can just activate the Charbelcher, since we can do so at instant speed. And yeah, there's a Skyclave Apparition, counter, and then in response to the Pact trigger, activate our cannon. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Jegantha, and what do we think of our hand? No Charbelcher or way to get it, just a looting to maybe find it, and then an awakening maybe. I think we can do better, although then again Jegantha decks are typically creature decks, so having some removal's nice, but I'll still take my mulligan for now. And yeah, this is much, much better. I want to keep 3 lands, Magma Opus, and then turn 3 we could combo with Feet into Charbelcher, so probably don't need Brotherhood's End, even though it could interact with the opponent. And then just play this tapped for now. We'll have to take 6 damage off our mana base, but this is an undisrupted turn 3 kill. Sentinel doesn't really matter. Pass a turn. And an Inspector's fine, so might be a Convoke deck. Sometimes they could have Thalia in there, which would be relevant interaction. For now, Kuldotha Rebirth, making some 1/1s. And they could still convoke a Knight Errant or Loxodon. Knight Errant it is. It's an impressive turn 2 here. Not too dissimilar from the standards sequences that we're used to by now. But we had the perfect hand, which also showcases the benefit of mulliganing every now and then. Ironcrag feet. Opponent gets to draw. Charbelcher activate. Easy peasy. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Lurrus as companion. Missing Charbelcher as well as creativity. So we're basically missing all our more exciting cards. Once again, very similar. Yeah, I think we go to 5. Now we do have Charbelcher, so I'm going to keep. Question is, can I keep the second Charbelcher in case of a discard spell? Because we also need to keep enough mana sources here. Lurrus means likely more aggressive deck as well, so I don't mind keeping the discharge to slow them down, so I don't think I'll be able to keep both Charbelchers. And then Magma Opus could go as well. Keep 3 lands as opposed to 2 lands and a Treasure Maker. And hope they don't start with turn 1 Thoughtseize, pretty much. Well, red-black could still present a discard spell later. Tapped or untapped is an interesting question. I guess I'll go untapped so I can discharge if needed, and then next turn cast a Charbelcher. And it's going to be an Amped Raptor, alright. What do they hit? No discard effect, please. It's going to be the Unstable Amulets, which can find another card. That's fine. So yeah, we should be able to resolve the Charbelcher, and I don't know if our opponent has answers to artifacts once in play. Can maybe play this out in case we need to smashing a creature later. Pass a turn. And Amulets finds a land. Well, very much possible our opponent's playing some discard effects, which would have completely wrecked our hand. But so far, it seems like we might get there. Discharge only hits creatures and planeswalkers. The picture makes it look like it could maybe destroy an artifact. So just using it to generate some energy here. Don't have to deal any damage with it if you don't want to. And then unearth back Raptor once again. Although it doesn't trigger unless you cast it from your hand. And then just activate Charbelcher for the win. Brotherhood's Ends also could have swept up their creatures. And there we have it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. We have Ironcrag feet into creativity with some Treasure Makers. So sign me up. Although facing a turn 1 Halfling, opponent's going to be off to a quick start, and Hazard cannot deal with the Halfling by itself. So in that case, I think I am okay striking it rich. Although we also need to have enough mana to eventually have triple red for Ironcrag feet. So maybe I'll save myself the damage, play a tapped Hazard, and then next turn we can strike it rich. Play a tap land. Ooh, opponent's on Stone Rain, I see, so the land destruction deck. Well, that's going to make it more difficult. So, just going to play this, make a treasure. If they're playing Karn, the Great Creator, they can also prevent me from activating Charbelcher in the first place, so that would also be game over unless we find an answer to Karn. Another Halfling for now. And Stone Rain again. Alright, no lands for me. At least they're not applying a ton of pressure. And there's Chandra. Well, that's certainly pressure. It's gonna start plussing.
No pressure.
Well, the weird thing is we still have a shot. Magma Opus, make a treasure. Next turn we'll need enough red mana for creativity, which is potentially a problem.
Is it just me, or is it getting a little warm in here?
And they've got a Sarkhan as well, can conjure up Shivan dragons. But I might still have 2 turns here. Which would be nice. Since this Chandra cannot deal damage directly to players, only creatures and planeswalkers. Okay, so take our turn. And a Shadow Skull Smashing, okay. So I can Ironcrag Feat, have an artifact left over, creativity, and then activate Charbelcher. That checks out. And there's our Charbelcher. Activate, and that's how you beat double Stone Rain. Awesome. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We've got Charbelcher, couple of lands, Pact of Negation. Seems good enough. Could get even better with an Ironcrag Feat. For now, play this tapped, save myself the damage. Next turn we can strike it rich, play another tap land. And see what we're up against. Blue-red. And a sleight of hand, so maybe a Phoenix deck. Hopefully they're not packing too many counter spells. Although Pact of Negation can maybe beat one of them. So, strike it rich. And could maybe hang on to the Awakening in case we need to improve our hand. But I'll just get the tap land out of the way. Can pay life for these other ones. And there's a Ledger Shredder, that's fine. So it does appear to be a Phoenix deck. And yeah, we can already cast a Charbelcher. And if they somehow have artifact removal, we can still protect with a Pact. Or try again with a second Charbelcher. Consider's fine. And an Opt, alright. Discards Arclight Phoenix, so they're planning to get those back. Technically, if they have a card like Stifle, they could counter the Charbelcher activation, but nope, opponent explodes. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Lurrus, and we've got a Keeper, some early removal, plenty of land drops. No way to speed up our Charbelcher, no Ironcrag Feat, so those would still be good draws. And our opponent's red-white, so perhaps an energy deck. As we see, Leonin Vanguard, so they might be playing the new Ajani. Brotherhood's End should be effective, so definitely gonna just play a tap land for now. The next turn, maybe go tapped Hazard. And then Brotherhood's End is looking good. Ocelot Pride can start making tokens. Yeah, let's just go with tapped Spikefield. If they play something like an Ajani's Pridemate, we can still take it out before it grows too large. Unstable Amulets happens. And reveals a Lightning Helix. That's okay. So we can sweep up all the tokens. hopefully that buys us enough time where we can comfortably set up our Charbelcher. Could have still used Discharge to save myself 2 damage earlier. Soul Warden's acceptable. So I'll just take 3 here in order to play Charbelcher. And then if they can deal 7 damage, we should be alright. Could have also maybe played it slow so we don't take any damage, so we don't die to double Lightning Helix, which is otherwise a possibility. They could also have the 1 mana enchantment that can take out any permanents. Nope, our opponent's out of answers and explodes. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing another Lurrus deck, and we've got no red lands is the problem, just to sink into Stupor, so I can actually cast Strike it Rich. So I'm afraid this is a mulligan. Okay, we've got 3 lands, Charbelcher, Treasure Maker, so can definitely keep. And then we'll get rid of a Magma Opus, only really need 1 to speed up our combo. If they have a discard effect for Charbelcher, it's nice to still have creativity. And it's gonna be a burn deck. So yeah, taking 3 repeatedly is not ideal. But I think we still go for it here, since then we'll be able to make a treasure, next turn cast Charbelcher, and then turn 4 win the game. And I can even Pact of Negation one of their burn spells perhaps. Slick Shot, yeah, that one's quite scary. So we could easily die next turn to a flurry of bump spells. But I have to just go for the Charbelcher, I think. So I'll Pact of Negation if it seems like our opponent's gonna have lethal otherwise. Swift Spear. If they have 2 ways to enable prowess is probably around 3 damage. So most burn spells or pump spells would be 3 damage. So I don't think I need to Pact that one. A Lightning Strike, okay. So we'll Pact of Negation here. So Lightning Strike would not quite have been lethal, as it turns out. We would have fallen to 1. And now Charbelcher can close it out. Alright, so a very close one here against Burn. And we'll get to rank up once again. Awesome, so yeah, getting to rank up twice in record time. So yeah, that's the newest build of Charbelcher for you. Thanks to all these extra untapped sources, we can actually curve out a lot better, cast our Treasure Makers to cast our Charbelcher ahead of schedule, and if we're lucky enough to combine it with Ironcrag Feat, we can already win on turn 3. So it's one of the fastest decks in the format. Doesn't mean that you cannot interact with it. Of course, discard spells and counter spells are one way to do it, but I've also seen land destruction be effective against this strategy, especially thinking of the new Phantom, which can blow up non-basic lands. Since we don't have any basics to search up, that can be a great way to slow down this strategy. There's also taxation effects like Thalia, which can also slow us down. So there's certainly answers out there, but now is a very good time to be playing this strategy, as you can quickly rank up before the meta adapts to it. So that'll do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.